guys are in charge. If our speaker moves around or they need to see the screen, you just move it like that, okay?
It's going to be high school only, unfortunately. Sorry, 7th graders. That'll be a lot of fun, so keep that on your calendar and wait to go for that. Then after that, in 2 weeks, we've got our Spirit Day for homecoming, where you get to do all sorts of fun spirit activities for the week. Thank you. So I'm going to announce what our Spirit Week days are. It is for high school. Sorry, some of the 8th graders, you have your own day later in the year. I'm sorry. Anyway, so first off, the Monday, we are going to have Star Wars versus Star Trek Day. And then for our second day, Tuesday, for 7th graders, basically this is, well, actually not for 7th graders, we're officially calling it Roaring 20s Day, but for all you guys who have read The Great Gatsby, it's pretty much Gatsby Day. So you can dress up like 20s Great Gatsby, it's fantastic. Our Wednesday is going to be Harry Potter Day. So all those fans of Harry Potter, this is your week. Now guys, our Thursday, I'm just going to let it sink in. Our Thursday is Teacher Lookalike Day. It needs to occur in a respectful manner, but it's going to be a blast. Okay, so that's what our Spirit Week is. I hope you're going to like it. It's going to be a blast. I'm looking forward to it. So next thing on the agenda, we need to explain homecoming royalty. So during the block week, on that Wednesday and Thursday, we are going to do our homecoming voting for royalty. On the Wednesday, during the house meeting, we're going to vote first and nominate the people from the house, and then we're going to have a final, so there'll be one boy and one girl from each grade nominated for homecoming royalty. And then the next day, Thursday, we'll have a final vote, which will be deciding who actually gets the nomination, who becomes homecoming royalty. Just keep that on your agenda. Also, homecoming announcement, we've got the pep rally on that Friday. It will be, thank you again, it'll be from 2:45 to 3:15 in here. There'll be no 9th periods that day, sorry, no clubs. But attendance is mandatory. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to send off the soccer and volleyball teams and all our sports teams to some great games, and it'll be a lot of fun. Get ready to show your Liberty spirit. All right. So sports-wise, we've got a volleyball game on that Friday, and just keep it on your radar, we've got that volleyball game. There will be no cross-country meet this year. If you have any questions about that, ask Mr. Mayor. Then we've got the Liberty to Liberty 5K on that Saturday morning before homecoming. It will be that morning, you'll be running from the high school to the elementary school. Come out, it's a blast. You get to see Mr. Julius do his awesome run, so I think that's worth it. Then after that, we've got the Key Club Car Wash. You can come in from 8 to noon and it's great. They're doing it to raise money for Eliminate, I believe the charity is. I think it's like to help kids get adopted. It's a great thing. You should participate and help get the money for them. Then later that day, we've got the soccer spirit game. That'll be against Roosevelt High School over at the elementary school. Go out. It is a spirit game, and we need to show our sports teams that we support them. So we'll have that. And then finally, what you've all been waiting for, that Saturday from 8 to 11, we will have the actual homecoming dance. Thank you. The theme will be vintage Hollywood. The dance will be from 8 to 11, $20 for singles, $30 for couples, and tickets will be sold at the door. Me and Gretchen have put a lot of work into organizing it. It's going to be a great time. You all will have a lot of fun. Please come. It'll be a blast. And now we have an announcement from Mrs. Stoltzfus.
Yeah. I just like to invite Mrs. Stoltzfus to talk about National Merit Semifinals. All right. Can I have the clicker? All right. So, quick announcement here. The PSAT, which is the preliminary SAT, National Merit Scholarship Qualifying Test, is coming up. So, juniors. All right, let me hear from juniors. Let me hear you. All right, good job. Okay, so the PSAT is required for all juniors. So you don't have to sign up. You don't have to do anything. You're just going to show up on October 14th in the morning, and we are going to test you. We have preparation, registration guides in the back. Not registration guides, but prep guides. And you want to make sure you use those. Sophomores and 9th graders, you guys are welcome to take the test if you want to. There's a $15 registration fee, and it's a good practice, but know that that same day in the afternoon, you're going to be taking a practice ACT. So you want to consider if that's something you want to do on the same day. So that's Wednesday. Now, why do we take the PSAT? All right, so there are 1.5 million students that enter this competition every year, and the highest PSAT selection index scores, it's a combination of reading, math, and writing, qualify for recognition in the National Merit Scholarship Program. So they're recognized in 2 different tiers. Commended students, which is about 2/3 of approximately 50,000, who will earn a commended status in the program. Those will be announced later this month. In addition, over 16,000 students, about 1/3, are recognized as semifinalists in this competition. So semifinalists are designated on a state representational basis. They're the highest scoring entrants in each state. So, recognition as a National Merit Semifinalist is one of the most prestigious honors bestowed on a high school student. To be considered for the National Merit Scholarship, semifinalists must advance then to finalist status. All right, so it is my pleasure to announce, can you guys give me a drum roll, the 2015 and 16 National Merit Semifinalists from Liberty Common High School, earning a perfect score, Mr. Bruce All right, and along with Mr. Bruce April, our very own Miss Annie Pearson. All right, guys stand on up here. All right, let's give them one more round of applause, please. All right, so before I make a few more announcements, I think that our school captains have a question.
So Will and I just negotiated with Mr. Schaefer, and we asked for a free dress day in honor of our finalists. So on Friday, tomorrow, I apologize, we will have a free dress day.
All right, so that you juniors can join the ranks of National Merit Semifinalists like Bruce and Andy, you required to come to the meeting. Seniors, next Wednesday, your senior meeting required. We'll be measuring for your caps and gowns. Graduation is just around the corner for you guys, and your announcements, and then all of the orders will be due on the 24th. Thank you.
So now we get to the moment you've all been waiting for, the Prudence Assembly itself. But first, we're just going to go through a little showcase of examples of prudential actions and actions not showing prudence. Showing prudence, doing your homework. Not showing your homework, showing prudence. Doing your homework to start a fire. So don't do that, do your homework. Prudence, asking the IA to get your stuff out of ransom. Not prudence. Breaking in and stealing stuff from ransom in the middle of the night. Don't do that. Mr. Kendall will kill you. Another example. Prudence. Studying for tests. Not prudence. Binge watching Netflix while homework piles up. That's good stuff. Alright, one more example. Prudence. Using the hall pass to go to the bathroom and then returning to class. And not prudence, using the pass to go on a 3-day vacation to Hawaii. I'm going to go for non-prudence option there, that's just me. Oh, we have one more. Prudence, respecting the authority of your teachers. Not prudence. Staging a student revolution against your teachers. Don't do it. Unless it's Mr. D, in which case you're fine. We have got a couple left, so please act with prudence. Don't mispredict it, yeah. Okay, so now we're going to be introducing our guest speaker.
It's my honor to introduce our speaker for today, Mr. Geoff Bailey. Geoff Bailey is the president of the Bailey Company. The Bailey Company is a restaurant franchisee and opened and operated over 120 restaurants over a 45-year period. He has served on the boards of the Excel Institute, Golden View Classical Academy, and the Inner City Parish. He received a BS in Business Administration from the University of Denver, and for 6 years served on the Dean's Advisory Board at the University of Denver's Daniels College of Business. He is a graduate of the Leadership Program of the Rockies. He was a co-finance chair for a congressional campaign in 2012 and a co-chair of the Job Creators Coalition in the last gubernatorial election cycle. Joining him today is Kendall Bailey, his wife, who is the vice chair of the Board of Trustees of the Alliance for Choice in Education. They have 3 adult children and 3 grandchildren. Mr. Bailey is an active fundraiser for Golden View Classical Academy. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Mr. Geoff Bailey.
Good afternoon. Ms. Prudence and I, the student body, the faculty, the administration, the board of directors of Liberty Common, and Mr. Schaefer for the opportunity to share time and thoughts with you on the virtue of prudence. My presentation has 3 parts to it. First, it's a study of the virtue of prudence. Secondly, I'm going to give you some examples of prudence in action. And finally, I'm going to give you some comments regarding the practice of prudence while attending Liberty Common. So what is prudence? What is prudence good for? I hope you will be able to answer those 2 questions upon the completion of my presentation. There are 3 words used throughout my presentation I would like to define, so when you hear them, you know I'm using them precisely. Information, that's the first word. Information is facts, details, or particulars. You get a lot of information in life and not know what to do with it. Knowledge. Knowledge are the facts and particulars and details and the skill acquired by a person through experience or education. It's the understanding of a subject, so it's taking the information and being able to do something with it. Wisdom is the quality of having experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Wisdom is the 3rd word. The soundness of action on a decision with regard to the application of experience, knowledge, and good judgment. Let's get started with my presentation. An accepted definition of prudence is the ability to govern and discipline oneself by the use of reason. Further, it is wisdom, which is the ability to judge between actions with regard to appropriate actions at a given time. Prudence is classically considered to be a virtue, and in particular, one of the four cardinal virtues, along with justice, temperance, and fortitude, which were applied by the Greek philosophers to all people seeking to live moral lives. Prudence, as a cardinal virtue, is used to determine a path, or to take, or a decision to make based on outcomes of goodness. It is used at the highest order of thinking, reason, and logic, and consequently is the highest valued virtue, since prudence is used to judge other virtues. This is important to understand. In other words, it is said that prudence is the cause, measure, and form of all virtues. Prudence is associated with wisdom, insight, and knowledge. Prudence is used to determine the highest good. Prudence considers the consequences of an action. This might surprise you. In the highest form of practice of prudence, as a cardinal virtue, it's not needed to determine virtue from vice, good from bad, or kind from vicious. For the ancient Greek philosophers believed that man would not knowingly do wrong or make wrong decisions. So prudence was used at a higher level, good with goodness. Aristotle believed that prudence comes into play not as a measure against virtue and vice, but more importantly as deep thinking to produce the decision which does the greatest amount of good when considering other courses or choices of true good. Aristotle's belief underscores the need for prudence to demonstrate there was a learned, reasoned, and thoughtful approach to decision-making based on logic, experience, and wisdom. At its core, prudence is used to weigh various goods against each other. Its function is to the point of which course of action to take in any concrete circumstance. Prudence provides a model of ethically good actions. Further, the use of prudence weighs the particular situation against possible outcomes with regard to oneself, the wholeness of human nature, and the public good. Simply said, prudence is a reasoned approach to pursuing true good. Prudence is needed to preserve a free and just society. I think this next statement is important and worth contemplating. People are not born with prudence. That's right. You are not born with prudence. Prudence is acquired. Prudence comes from principled deep thinking, disciplined practice, formal study, wisdom, knowledge, and observation over time. The virtue of prudence is defensible. Although you don't hear the word prudence used very often today, the virtue exists in modern times as practical wisdom, practical judgment, or rational choice. As a matter of fact, the Liberty Common webpage in its definition of prudence says, prudence, predicated upon the practical reason. Prudence entails discernment of the true good surrounding every situation and the moral means of achieving it. That's a very powerful statement. Right. At this stage, do you think you have the concept of prudence in your head? Let me say yes, you do. All right, great. I'll move on to the second part of my presentation and use a few examples to help with the concept. Let's look to the 16th President of the United States, President Abraham Lincoln. As a candidate for president on the issue of slavery, Lincoln was an abolitionist. He was against slavery in all forms, yet he realized slavery was well seated in the Deep South and would take some time to be abolished. In fact, he thought it would take over 100 years for the country to move completely away from slavery. He entered his presidency holding that belief. Well, as we all know today, the Civil War, one of the bloodiest wars of all time, was fought to determine the outcome of slavery, Southern secession, and the strength of the Union. As president, Lincoln faced many decisions with respect to prudence. Perhaps his most important two were to fight to preserve the Union during the Civil War and beginning the process that led to the end of slavery in the United States with the Emancipation Proclamation. Lincoln, against the opinion of many, fought the war to its conclusion, and he managed to keep foreign nations from intervening in the Civil War. He didn't stop the Civil War, even though he was under immense pressure to do so. Using prudence, Lincoln weighed holding the United States together against the backdrop of stopping the war and having peace. Because of Lincoln, our nation held together, passed the 13th Amendment, and had peace within the country's borders. Prudence prevailed. Now, in the context of being a student at Liberty Common and using prudence, Connor Hansen gave me a couple of appropriate examples which I believe fit into the modern context of prudence. He wrote to me about a student that used prudence to improve her decision-making in general. She especially said that she was taking a more thoughtful approach to help her decide what elements in her life were priorities, and she was using prudence to help her stay focused during her junior year. Remember when I said earlier that prudence is something you were not born with? It's true. A person gains the virtue of prudence by putting it into practice. You get it by training yourself to consider the best of your options. And with time, you gain experience and wisdom along with the ability to apply reason to the mix and take action. Here's another example that Connor gave me. He wrote to me about a student that was practicing prudence to evaluate the best outcomes prior to taking action. The student continued to do that in the past year or so, and said using prudence has allowed him to make fewer mistakes and to have better outcomes in school and in life. Aristotle would be proud of the active practices of prudence. I'm going to shift gears a little bit, because it's a fine line, but we haven't talked about the derivative word with prudence. That word is prudent. Prudent also looks at outcomes based on actions, but it doesn't necessarily apply good against true goodness. Here's what I mean as an example. And we have some good examples from Connor today. So when you get into a car, it's a good idea to put on your seatbelt. It's a prudent decision. It's a practical application. Another prudent decision is to do your homework and study prior to a test. It is prudent to wear a coat, a hat, and gloves when it's cold outside. Each of these examples shows a level of thinking about outcomes, and we can easily see the implications of doing them or not. These examples don't require the highest order of thinking, reason, and logic required by the virtue prudence. These are examples of being prudent. I now move to the final portion of my presentation. A year ago, I was with a group of people taking a tour of Liberty Common, as Kendall and I did today. There were a number of things which have been focal points of conversation over the past year that were observed by the people that were in this group, which I believe demonstrate the practice of virtue, the virtue of prudence. First of all, as a group, we were welcomed, treated with civility, and acknowledged throughout the tour by school teachers, Mr. Schaefer, and most importantly to me, the students. Kendall and I experienced that same thing again today. It was obvious that forethought was going into the behavior we were witnessing in the hallways vis-a-vis manners, the role of students interfacing with a group of visitors as well as with each other. Throughout the hallways, this is another observation we made, throughout the hallways, performance was made visible by what was displayed on the walls and talked about in the halls. Making performance visible is the best practice in business. It is important for people in a company to know what the goals are, how close you are to attaining the goals, and to be able to share the goals with each other. The process of setting goals involves using prudence. If the halls of Liberty Common are any indication, this best practice is still being practiced. It is a reinforcement of what matters. Making performance visible supports the virtue of prudence. An example of goal setting and the practice of prudence was Liberty Common setting the goal of setting a state record on ACT scores. I'm sure there were other lofty goals that were being considered to strive for, but setting goals uses wisdom to judge, as we said earlier, between actions and with regard to appropriate actions. By the way, congratulations on setting a new state record on ACT. So I guess maybe it's just graduating seniors going on. Listen to this. When a person walks these special halls, and you do have a special place here at Liberty Common, it is easy to see the promise of America. The characteristics and skills being practiced, learned, and studied are lifelong tools you will use through college and beyond. The lessons learned here will help you to become self-reliant, self-governing, and critical thinking members of society, ready to compete on the local, regional, and global scene, whether your career is professional, in business, or vocational. The world is complex, and many say it's unstable. Having a foundation of knowledge upon which to stand will help make sense of it. Here's an interesting piece of information. Across America, your generation is the most informed generation of all time. Access to the internet, computers, social media, and smartphones have brought a world of information to your generation's disposal. And here's another piece of information. Across America, your generation is the least knowledgeable. Liberty Common aside, you guys are gaining lots of knowledge. In previous generations, due to the lack of deep study into content-rich curriculums. Last year in the gubernatorial debate, the panelists asked a question about Colorado's academic performance. The current governor fielded the question. He stated, Colorado ranked in the bottom 25 of the nation's schools, and that in the previous year, with a smile on his face, Colorado had only slipped 2 percentage points further behind. Not the kind of quote the Chamber of Commerce is going to use to attract families or businesses to Colorado. Information is not knowledge. Knowledge is not wisdom. And without wisdom, how will we as a nation use prudence? Also noticed at Liberty Common was a camaraderie and friendship that comes from getting to know each other through common interests and shared experiences. In some respects, the good practice of developing friendships in school is a training ground for building career relationships and networks later on in life. When you think of your classmates and friends, actually, when you are picking your close classmates and friends, you are practicing prudence. Your friends should represent the characteristics which are important to you. How hard do your friends study? How do your friends treat strangers? How do your friends speak about others? Are your friends good sports? Who your friends are speaks of who you are. I ask these questions because from my experience, life gives to you what you are prepared to receive, and life will teach you the lessons you have to learn. Taking a thoughtful approach to life, by exercising prudence, you will become a credible leader faster, and you will be known among your peers as someone trustworthy, supportive, solution-oriented, and good. In conclusion, I leave these final 2 thoughts with you. 1, the lessons you are learning while attending Liberty Common are going to stay with you the whole of your life and will be the foundation of growth which will propel you to the front of any crowd. Liberty Common builds leaders, it teaches leaders, and it trains leaders. Take every opportunity while you are here to practice the concepts you are hearing about and the lessons you are learning about, in order to raise yourself to the highest standard, where you will be a master, fulfilling your destiny, and practicing prudence at the highest level of goodness. And number 2, if there's one practice, just one practice, I would recommend to you, it would be every day, be self-reflective. Put your cell phone down, turn off the internet, be quiet, and give yourself an affirmation about how you're going to take the awareness and knowledge you have to make yourself, your family, your school, and your community better. Read and believe the keystone virtue of Liberty Common High School on wisdom. Read it every day. Live it every day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bailey. That was great. Now we can take some questions and answer questions for Mr. Bailey, and he will give you an answer. Vivian.
That's a good question. I'll rephrase it to make sure I have it right. Where have I used prudence to have the biggest impact on my life? Is that good enough? Right, so I'll use last year as an example when we took a tour of the school. Part of the reason we were taking a tour of the school is to see if we would be interested in opening up the core knowledge classical liberal arts school in Golden, Colorado. So we had a building. Our family has a building, 65,000 square feet, and we had commercial tenants in the building. People that had been in the building 10 years, one for 16 years, some for less than 5 years. It was a commercial venture for profit. So we had a building that was intended to raise money for our family and create a profit, and that was good. Well, we also had an opportunity to put in a classical liberal arts school into our building. That meant we had to take the tenants out of the building. We had to say to people who had been with us for all those years, we don't have room for you anymore. We're turning the building into a school. And oh, by the way, the new tenant is paying less than $9 a square foot. The commercial tenants were paying $23 and $26 a square foot. So the goodness to us of having the school in our building became more important than having the commercial tenants in the building. So I think it fits the model of prudence that we weigh various actions and outcomes, do good things against each other to come up with the best thing. Did that answer your question? Any other questions?
What would you say is the best synonym?
Best synonym for prudence. What do I think that might be? I have to believe it's in the definition of wisdom. I think that definition, and you have it on your webpage as a keystone virtue, gets as close as you can to talking about prudence. Did that answer your question? Anybody else? Okay. Say that again. I got the knowledge part. How do you use prudence to turn knowledge into wisdom? All right. So how do you use prudence to turn knowledge into wisdom? That was kind of the definition of the 3 words that I gave at the very beginning. So you can start with information, and that's having the particulars and the details, and that going into knowledge is being able to add an extra step onto having the information with you. And the difference between knowledge and wisdom is also being able to use your judgment, as well as having a skill and an understanding of the subject, and that's what knowledge is. I know something about something, and now being able to use that knowledge with your judgment and your experience to be able to make decisions. Does that help? Yes. By the way, I'm going to give Connor a copy of my presentation, and also Mr. Schaefer one, so if there's anything in there that was of interest to somebody who wants to understand a little bit better, it's there. Much of that's Kendall's words or my words. Some of it footnoted properly from Wikipedia. Connor helped us, Mr. Schaefer helped us on a couple of things. So if we go through Wikipedia, you'll say, oh gosh, that's where you got that. Actually, one of your speakers on Prudence last year used one of the direct sentences, and I happened to, in my research, find that she got that sentence. So I used it, maybe just familiar with it. Any other questions?
Just wondering, how will our kind of virtue system here in our character virtues influence the pattern of the golden ball? Are you going to incorporate that into the pattern?
We have 7. The question was, how are we going to incorporate the virtues that you have at Liberty Common, the Golden View Classical Academy? Our virtues are similar. They have 7 virtues that go to the Classical Academy, but they are contemplating passing and saying these are going to be the board and the administration are still debating those at work. It's just at the opening of school. A best practice in life, if somebody else is doing something well, at a very high standard, and you'd like to be like that, copy it. You can shamelessly copy it. Because you can't ever copy somebody perfectly. You'll put your own thumbprint, personality onto it. So to see excellence at any level, you say, oh gosh, we're not going to do excellent. We're just going to do good. But if somebody's showing you excellence, do it. So I hope that answers your question. Any others? It's been a great office. Thank you.
Thank you for coming so much. We really appreciate it.